technology is always a solution in the crisis. So technology will be really handy. There are multiple areas in which this technology would be adopted. One area is in the conduction of admission tests, the learning space.
For online education to really become mainstream and enroll, millions of students rather than hundreds of thousands of students, we need to have online degrees that are accredited by the various agencies.
My message to all the students and the higher education stakeholders is we need to double our efforts in this time in order to sustain and keep our economy afloat.
In India, we have to look at technology and education 4.0 as actually providing education to the uneducated, people who are not getting quality education.
Education 3.0 was nothing but technology driven. This is now going to be a permanent feature and is now going to figure in all the teaching learning activities of times to come.
Welcome to yet another College Dunia Connect chapter. As we all know that the new national education policy has been approved by the union government and is now a talk of every town. Every student as well as education institutes are trying to understand the policy and the impact it will have on education in India. Hence, College Dunia Connect brings the stalwarts of the higher education industry together on one platform when we want to discuss how the new policy is going to shape the future of education in India. The education policy has been changed after 34 years, bringing a new era for the education in India. There are nearly 20 major changes which have been incorporated, such as higher education institutes shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. Bachelor's degree will have multiple exit options, and one of the most crucial changes that 10 plus 2 structure in school will be modified to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, covering ages 3 to 18. These are some of the many changes that will bring a new step in our education industry. So today we have these eminent panelists to help us understand these changes in a better way and let us know the impact of NEP 2020 on students and the industry players. Let me start this discussion by introducing each of the panelists. So we have with us Dr. Manish. Dr. Manish is an engineer, a practitioner, an educator, an administrator, an incubation and startup mentor. He has a doctorate in mechanical engineering from NIT Bhopal, having international exposure of modern manufacturing processes, high precision production technology, and state-of-the-art CNC machines. Also having a natural inclination towards academics and taught mechanical engineering to university students during the overall experiences of 20 plus years. I welcome you, Dr. Manish, and I welcome you, and we hope we have a great session. Sir, do you have
Thanks, Vinay.
For us?
Oh, sure. I would open up with a compliment to you as a person and College Dunia as an organization, doing good work for the benefit of students, rather to act as a bridge between the students and the institutes. Particularly this session, what do you call it? College Dunia Connect, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that also is an appreciable initiative, particularly with a viewpoint of making the students aware about things, and nothing hotter than the new education policy. So I'm sure students and the viewers will be eager to know more about the education policy, the pros and cons of the policy, and also as we have a good panel of eminent speakers with the senior professors, senior academicians, I'm sure something fruitful of the benefit of each student, each viewer of this session would come out of this session after we come to an end of this session. So thanks again for inviting me, and wish you all the best.
We have with us we have with us Ms. Monica Mittal, who has brought her laurels in international business administration while pursuing masters in business administration at University of Northampton. She also carries international certification in marketing with Institute of Marketing. Ms. Monica has attained expertise in making right financial decisions and effective management of organizational behavior, the keys to success for any organization. We welcome you, ma'am, and we hope to have a fruitful session. So, can you enlighten us with some opening remarks? There is some audio issues going on, so we'll take the opening remarks for Monica ma'am later. We have with us Dr. Vikas Misra, who did his BE in Mechanical Engineering from University of Pune in year 1995. He is currently working as the campus director in Gitanjali Institute Technical Studies, Udaipur since July 2017. Before that, he served as a director with Allen House Institute of Technology, Kanpur, from 2012 to 2017, and has published more than 47 research papers in various journals of repute. Visited Florida and Mexico to present paper in international conferences. We welcome you, sir, and please enlighten us with some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Vinay, and a very warm good evening to all the esteemed panel members. It's my pleasure to share the virtual platform with you all. I am deeply honored, and I sincerely wish that all my panel members are fine with their health and everything is fine back with their institute. First of all, my congratulations to College Dunia for choosing this topic. As Dr. Manish has very rightly pointed out, it is the talk of the country, not the talk of the town, but talk of the country. And yes, this education policy was very much long awaited. Almost it took, after 34 years, there has been another policy. It is the first education policy of 21st century. And as we all are aware, the 21st century is the century which is going to be led by youth of India. So the whole world is looking towards India in terms of the education, in terms of in what way we as a nation are building the character, building the youth in terms of imbibing the qualities. And as our past is so glorious in terms of giving value-based, culture-based
we have with us Dr. Yogesh Pathak, who has been associated with Prestige Institute of Management and Research Indore since November 1st, 1994, and took as director on November 1st, 2008. She is also a nominated member for Expert Committee for drafting subject-specific templates for learning outcomes-based curriculum framework for undergraduate level by UGC New Delhi. We welcome you, ma'am, and we hope to have a great session. Please enlighten us with some opening remarks.
A very good evening to you, Vinay, and to all my panel members, and also to all the audience who are there with us today. First of all, let me tell you that as far as the new education policy is concerned, I am extremely happy about the same. It's long overdue. Our education policy needed to be overhauled, whether it was for school, college, or at the PG level, and even at the PhD level. So this is a really nice thing which has happened. It has happened timely. We really needed to do this for a very long time. The way it has happened is also extremely good. I mean, everybody has been made to participate in it before they have drafted the policy, and the policy has something for everybody. The transformation of school education is really very needed, because when a student comes to you in the undergraduate or a graduate level, if he does not have the necessary base, or you have not given him sufficient exposure, or helped him to improve the way he thinks, or the creativity has not been developed, it's very difficult in 1 year or 2 years of a PG education to suddenly transform the student. So I think this is really, really good. Some aspects of the NEP which I thought were really very, very nice. Firstly, I really like this, the common entrance test. This is really needed. Our students are so, there's so much problem because the students have to give so many entrance tests for varied institutions. And it is very taxing. I think that for the at least since November, they start giving their various entrance tests and it just goes on till the month of July. So this is a big relief for students. Second thing which I really appreciated about this policy is the entry exit. There are so many students who would want to take a break, and this is the way it is done internationally. The student should be allowed to do 1 year and decide, okay, now I have got an internship for a year or I have got a job for a year and I will do that. I'll come back and my credits are deposited and I can always retrieve my credits and continue. So this is very good. It is in line with the international education system. So I really appreciate this. Another thing I think students will greatly benefit is that there will be a lot more scholarships and incentives which will be given both by private as well as government institutions. So this will help increase our the number of students enrolling in education. Another thing which I felt was very, very important, which was not there, was autonomy both to institutions as well as to faculty. So if faculty is now going to decide the pedagogy he's going to use, the evaluation criteria he's going to use, if everything is going to be done, that is really good. That is what is needed. The flexibility must be given to the faculty and to the institution. So this new concept of having, rather than standalone institutions, multidisciplinary institutions, will be degree awarding institutions. This is really exceptional. And I think the emphasis on well-being of the student by way of having career counselors and having also having psychological counselors is very, very much needed because of the stress levels that the students go through. So I really appreciate this, the NEP, and even the digitalization, offering credits online, allowing them to transfer credits. Internationalization is another thing which is really nice. Students can get credits from foreign universities, transfer this to their home universities. There will be foreign students coming in. So all this is really good, and I really appreciate the effort that College Dunia is making to make all this known to the students. So thank you so much, Vinay.
Yes. Welcome. Ms. Monica, I would like to ask you, how will this increased investment in education by both the state and the central government will impact the education sector in the long run? Ms. Monica, I'll just repeat my question. How will the increased investment in education by both the state and the central government impact the education in the long run? Dr. Vikas, can you have your opinion on the same?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my apologies. Initially, the Wi-Fi got disconnected because of power failure. So, so that is what is still a little bit of infrastructure is being more need to be strengthened. As you have pointed out in terms of the increased allocation, this is very good thing probably which Government of India and the provision which has been taken into this national education policy. Because as we all are aware, up till now, India is spending almost close to around 1.75 or almost close to 2% of the GDP is being spent on the education. And now it is being proposed with this new education policy that around 6% of the GDP will be invested on the education, which is a very welcome step, and probably it is going to make a major sea change. And with the increased allocation in funding, will directly going to benefit the universities, and as it has been provision that now all HEIs, especially I am talking in reference to higher education sector, all higher education sector has to convert themselves into university by 2030 and 2035. So this allocation of increased allocation of fund is directly going to boost the NRF, which Government of India has established under this education policy, the National Research Foundation which has been set up. That is For that, the increased allocation of funding was very important and essential. So setting up the NRF with the increased allocation, it's going to bring a major change in the research culture, in the startup culture, in the innovation, and that's what is one of the main strength of this new education policy which is being incorporated. So allocation of fund is going to bring a major change, and it is going to be a game changer, and I believe where it is going to play a major role in the holistic development of the student, in the life cycle of the student, right away from K-12, kindergarten to the higher education. So it is going to benefit, and that was the need of the hour. That's what is my view on this.
So, Dr. Manish, what do you think are the critical recommendations of NEP which will improve the quality of education in India?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would really appreciate one thing that after a wait of long time, so many years, rather decades, something has come up. So, as they say, policy is a kind of roadmap. It's a blueprint, and you need to have a blueprint handy. Every 10 years, as they say, policy has to change, and the knowledge, in fact, doubles every 10 years. So, unfortunately, there has been a lot of gap. First, it came in 1968. Then the second policy came in 1986. So long wait, and then finally, after a wait of 34 years, now 2020 policy has come up. Thankfully, we have something in our hands which we must appreciate, and we must recognize that the authorities on such. I mean, the brighter aspect of it, so many people were involved. 1.5 lakh people were involved in giving their suggestions. So the government has taken pains to go to the panchayat level to talk to the people and find out that what is missing, what they want to have in the new education policy. And based on that feedback or based on that research, that in-depth research, something has come up. The thing which, I'm an engineering teacher, so I would be able to comment only on the engineering aspect of the education policy. But one thing which has attracted me foremost is the better connect between the school and the college. Hello. They have started coding, computer programming right from class 6th. So a student of class 6th will be able to know what is computer programming. And this is the time you name the branch, and they would have requirement of the coding, be it civil engineering, be it electrical engineering, or any other core engineering sector. Every recruiter would in some way or the other pose this requirement of coding. Do you know coding? It's okay that you have knowledge of the core area, but then how is your coding? How is your programming? So very much appreciable point of this new education policy, coding right from class 6th. Secondly, the importance that has been given to skill development, that also is appreciable. They have thought, the policymakers have thought that only the bookworms won't have a good future unless they have some or the other skill which is developed not only at the later stage but right since the school. This combination of choosing the subjects. So eventually one student would study physics, and he would or she would take music along with that physics. So there have been pools which have been suggested in the new education policy rather than the traditional streams. So earlier they had streams, now the new education policy has recommended the pools. So the student will definitely be choosing what he or she likes or what he or she is good at. That is an appreciable point. Then the categorization of different areas like the HECI, the Higher Education Commission of India, which will definitely replace both the UGC and the AICT. So some kind of amalgamation is also proposed, which seems to be a good symbol. Earlier people used to be confused between different authorities which are supposed to govern the educational institutes, particularly the higher education institutions. So now there seems to be much clarity with one single authority being into picture, whether the technical institution or the higher education system of non-technical nature. Everything will be governed by one single authority.
So,
And
Dr.
then, yeah.
So, Dr. Yogi, what do you think are the critical recommendations? What are your point of view on these recommendations which will help improve the quality of education in India?
Yes. Am I supposed to answer that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so actually the thing, what I feel is really going to make an impact on the quality of education is that firstly there is going to be a total transformation in teacher training. So the the substandard teacher training institutions offering B.Ed, they will all be shut down, or they need to transform, and the way in which the teachers are trained to deal with students itself will change. Even the subjects which they will be taught during that entire process will be changed. Because the most important thing is the teacher. If the teacher at a school level doesn't know how to teach, that is not going to be very effective. So I think it is exceptional that so much importance has been given to the teacher. I think that will improve the quality of education. Definitely also the fact that there will be a choice-based credit system, number of electives. This will increase the quality. Experiential learning, they want you to do a lot of field projects. They want research to get incorporated. If you look at undergrad education, if you do a 4-year undergrad, the 4th year will be research. So this will definitely change the quality of the students, and the level of education which will be happening in this country. I think this will really impact. It's a very good initiative.
So, Dr. Deepika, compared to the existing system, regulatory system, do you think the new system will be easier to work with?
Yes, this is a very good change which we have had. This is because of the evolution. I want to take up some 3-4 key points. Every 10 years, just like there is a 5-year plan in economics, in society. So we have had 4 revolutions, industrial, and this is we are under the development of information revolution. So my key points are globalization. Today we are not in a simple, we are in a global digital world. And before a child, a 3-year-old child, first nursery was of 4 years. Now they have started in the 3 years. First we have to primary foundation, and everything should be very good. So that event which they have taken up. And the policies, the 5-year plans has changed. Has changed. The amendments are there. Was also in countries. Directive principles of literacy was taken from Ireland. Direct, free and access education has come from free and access, equitable education is there. So my key points is today we have to fight whether you are rich or poor, equality in education, starting from a foundational level, and emphasizing on the 4 listening, speaking, reading skills. Now when a child is born, we have to start from the elements. So when a child is born and he cannot hear, you are automatically deaf and dumb. So listening exercises, creative analysis, learning by rote, as important practice, analysis, quiz, MCQs, right from 5th standard, 4th standard level. So I am emphasizing that we are in a global digital, even if you do not travel, you don't have the money to travel, you will get scholarships. I have my students, my computer science students who are learning YouTube, digital marketing, free of have to know how to use. Teachers are just going to be facilitators. Now in the next So in say 2030, another education policy, and we middle-aged old people have to accept this as a teacher. I have a vice chancellor for 35 years. So I am talking with experience. When we went to college, there were only 6 books in the library, and the pages of the topic were torn. Where will I start also? You get it? Now, if you have little money, should be done funding on laptops and genuine laptops without politics. Research has to be emphasized from first year. So my key points are globalization, equal digital access, adaptability. Our Indian students and ethical. Our Indian students are very, very good compared to.
We'll come back to ethics in just a short while. In the meantime,
Westerners are there. And the environment in Chhattisgarh.
There's some network issue.
Hello.
Miss Monica, I want to ask you, how will this new education system build entrepreneurship in the upcoming generation of students? Because that is one very crucial point which
Right.
we're missing out on, which is the installation of entrepreneurship. That is what's going to grow the country. So,
I think development, which is very good. And another thing is education. The education is starting from 3. The free and fair, equitable. That is also very good. The children will be able.
so Miss Monica has again
To stand on his own feet. Whether and the leader discipline.
Miss Deepika will come back to
Because of the inter growth, like I'm not.
Dr. Vikas, I would like to take your opinion on how do you think the entrepreneurship will be instilled in students with the new education policy?
Vinay, probably entrepreneurship has emerged as one of the very significant attribute probably in the last 5-6 years, where the entire globe, and particularly if you talk about Indian context, a major changes are taking place in terms of entrepreneurship because of the change in the thought process. Lot many startups, lot many incubation center, innovation councils have been established. Government has taken initiative, or the AICT, if I particularly talk in terms of related to the technical areas, AICT has developed that MIC council. So these are still at a very nascent state, but yes, it is now slowly gaining prominence. And in this new education policy, a focus has been given. That's why a focus has been given on the comprehensive development of a student. When we say about comprehensive development, then it talks about, it comes with a complete package. And that is what is being mentioned, that now a student of science will also study a little bit about arts, about humanities. A student of humanities will study something about science and technology. So we produce, today is a world of complete package. It's an era of plug and play. Gone are the days where we were looking, or industries were looking for trainees, hiring a college going fresher as a trainee, giving them either for GETs or management trainees for 9 months or 12 months. So all those things are now of the past. Now with the change scenario, it's a straight away concept of plug and play. So in this, in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of startup, government has taken lot many initiative. Establishing of a promotion council in the new education policy is what a one step, bringing more close towards. Then again, I will with the NRF, where it will be facilitating, it will be acting as a bridge between institution and industry. And that's what a very beautiful thing which has been included in this policy, that government now, or the NRF is now also going to to a type of hand-holding, a type of mentoring will be there, engaging senior professors or engaging the retired professionals, engaging the stalwarts of the country, those who are into the senior age group, or those who are having immense experience, engaging them as a part of mentoring the institute. Also, there is a provision of where now a mentoring of one university by another university, collab sharing. That is something very good which has been incorporated in this policy, that collaboration sharing is important. So, and then development of skill, and skill in both way, upskilling and reskilling. That is what is going to be the most important thing. What new policies and what are the existing work policy in order to increase the productivity? All those things are going to help. And with the current situation, also with the current pandemic situation, now India is going to emerge as a manufacturing hub. We all are aware about the approach of all the powerful leaders or powerful countries about China. So now India all of a sudden has become a hot cake in terms of our manufacturing opportunities because of the talent, because of the youth which we are having. So entrepreneurship is going to rise, and this education policy, the provisions which have been incorporated, is going to certainly boost and empower the youth into this direction.
I would like to tell
Vinay,
you what. Yes,
Vinay, if you just allow me interfering here to what Dr. Vikas has just mentioned. Entrepreneurship has been so far associated with a lot of dropouts, either school dropouts or college dropouts. You would have personally found a lot of them in this field of entrepreneurship or startup. But I think with this new education policy, we will have less of dropouts. And all the esteemed panelists would agree with me that there has to be a flavor of formal education, even if you do entrepreneurship or you do a startup of your own, or you have a factory of your own, or a business of your own, and so on. You need to have some flavor of formal education. So now I think we shall be seeing less students who are school dropouts or college dropouts. Number one, right from the school, we shall be able to teach them the importance of skills. We shall be able to divert them towards the skill of their choice. Number two, the autonomy that is planned to be given to the colleges. The colleges would be able to design their own curriculum, to implement their own curriculum. Perhaps the college would have a possibility or a flexibility to form a different class of students which are going to be entrepreneurs. And thirdly, which is the most important part, the implementation of multidisciplinary colleges. I know my student, for instance, at Oriental we are very much into incubation and startup activities along with the incubation centers. So I know a student who wanted to have a startup of his own in agri business. The modern way of agriculture. He wanted to do that, but then having no idea of agriculture, he had to start right from scratch after he completed his engineering and mechanical. So if this policy would have been in place a couple of years before, he would have got a flexibility to study agriculture along with mechanical engineering. And thereby, soon after passing out from the college, he would have started his own agri-business as a startup. So I think this policy or these kind of thoughts and these kind of philosophies are definitely going to help all the entrepreneurs, all the startup students who are going to have their own business.
But there are a lot of roadblocks in between for these entrepreneurs, and in return for the implementation of NEP also. So, Ms. Monica, what do you think are the roadblocks, and how do we tackle the roadblocks which will be occurring while implementing the policy?
Right. First of all, my very warm greetings to all the dignitaries, and I would like to apologize for connecting a bit late. I could just hear your views just 2 minutes back. Before that, I couldn't hear anything. So, yeah, first of all, with the government introducing the new National Education Policy 2020, which seems to be the foundation of a new country, I think this topic is under discussion and we all are trying to understand this. the more we will discuss this, the more clarity we will get. We can come to certain mechanisms, and yes, as an educator, as academicians, our role becomes even stronger in reviewing this policy. So you mentioned about the roadblocks, right?
Yes.
So firstly, I would like to mention that this policy envisions a very holistic approach for the school education as well as higher education. If we talk in terms of school level mechanism, certainly it is designed in a manner that will enable a student to be more skilled, and his critical thinking, his logical thinking will be developed in such a manner that he will be able to perform better overall, like the introduction of vocational education, coding at class 6. This will enable his brain to develop faster, and if he performs well at the school level, he or she would definitely perform better at the higher education level. And ultimately, he or she will be exposed to good career options other than the traditional ones. And we can say that a student can design his own career path in a more accurate manner. But this framework is only possible if we also modify and update our course contents and syllabus as per the new structure. Because if we update the structure and we run with the same old syllabus and same old contents, this new structure will make no sense. Secondly, this policy aims to set up a single regulatory body for the higher education, excluding medical and legal, and the public and private universities, they will be governed by the same set of norms. Which, if we talk about the current situation, we are having multiple governing bodies which have a contradictory set of rules and regulations. So the way it sounds in theory, if it is actually implemented, I think it would be actually an advantage for the institutes, because they can channelize their energies towards the upliftment of education rather than being stuck in unnecessary paperwork, unnecessary formalities.
So we have the result to our first poll, which was, will the entry of foreign institutions in India prove to be beneficial for the Indian educational system? And 94% of our audience thinks that yes, it is the entry of international institutes is a positive step. Dr. Yogeshwari, what is your take on that? How much benefit will we get from international institutes coming national?
No, foreign institutions should be allowed to come to India. There are various reasons for this. One is that we need to open up. So just being in a small pond and thinking we are the best is not going to work. It's when foreign universities come here that we will also realize the gaps which exist in our system and in our delivery and in our content. And therefore, there is a lot of learning which will take place. Existing institutions will learn a lot. Second is, I think it will benefit the students also, because you see such a large number of students go abroad, and the cost to these students is very steep, because they not only pay for the education, they also pay for their stay, which is very expensive, because the other currency is having more value than the Indian rupee, as well as the transportation cost, and there are so many factors. Even our students go there, they are not used to the lifestyle, and therefore they can't really focus on the studies. They are very initially it takes them a lot of time to get used to the climate, to get used to the society, the way it works, and this really for the first semester creates a lot of hurdles for our students. So we will save a lot of foreign exchange also. Students also will get the benefit of very high quality institutions being there in India. So this option is available to them. And definitely Indian institutions will learn a lot. We will also have a chance to collaborate, because you must understand that even if they come to India, these will be quite elite institutions. So there will be a learning which the other institutions will make, and I think it will be good for everybody.
So, Dr. Deepika, we have an audience question. does the new education policy meet all the requirements according to the current situation, or are there still some positive changes which can be brought out from the policy which is being discussed?
Yes, according to me, there are certain lacunas in the new education policy because we are a developing nation and we are a poverty-stricken nation and diversification of languages. In the new education policy, they have taken the regional language to support the medium at the primary level to class 5. Now, this may or may not, it is very good to respect your mother tongue, but this might create more diversification among, most of the population is in rural areas where they want 2 meals, they are concentrating only 2 meals, Anganwadis. Going abroad and all is a very secondary or even a dream for most of the, I'm talking only about India or developing nations. So here they have started, the education policy proclaims that a child should learn in Marathi, Bengali, Tamil, and English today has to be accepted as a global language, an accepted global universal language. So if you don't start early, I want to give my example. I studied in a convent missionary school where Hindi was not compulsory, and by force, I had to leave it. I was good, but I had to leave it in the 8th. It was a qualification exam. I did 2 questions and I left. After that, today I cannot read any. So it is good in the sense that you are respecting your mother tongue, you are representing your country. Even abroad, my niece is abroad, you are doing Gurmukhi. But as a universal language, even if you are a French, Italian, you should know one universal language, which is English. So you must start early. The earlier you start, the better it is. So we should have a dual language from class, medium. I'm talking about the medium. If you study in Marathi, if you're studying science, if your sun sets in the east, your east is what I still don't know today also at this level because I've not studied it. So you must have a dual medium of instruction, right? That I don't really accept it because people they are not studying, they are going only to eat food in the Anganwadis. I'm not talking about English medium and higher middle class where you give lakhs and donations to get into a IIM and the 99.1 percentile and all that is. That is another issue. That is another level altogether. So one thing I should emphasize that you have to think locally, you have to work locally and think globally from the English communication angle. That is a very big lacuna which I wanted to project and throw open. As far as higher education is concerned, new education policy has done a lot. And we must increase all exchange programs and scholarships at a much higher level. Of course, they have made education free from free to the poverty-stricken people from class from years 3 to 8. First, it was 1 to 5 classes, I believe. And the new education policy will give, if you are a poor poverty line below class, you will get education. So students are not going. So we are 70% is in the rural area because ours is an agriculture economy. So we must emphasize on the fertilizers, the agriculture. This is my take. I'm not saying according agricultural benefits because see, if a child is good in maths, now you keep teaching him English or Hindi, then he will also lose confidence. Every person can't do everything. So, and technology should start even before you learn A, or ABC. Technology should be given. See, I can't start writing on the leaves. And by rote, we are saying by rote is not wrong. Only practical exercises. Everything is important. As I can still remember my nursery class. 1 1s are 2 1. It comes. But of course, Vedic maths and all should also be encouraged. And we must respect, if you talk only about the Indian context, you must respect our Vedas, Upanishads, Charaka Samhita. Now this no virus, no vaccine has come. There is a lot of politics of a vaccine. Russia is developing one, is not giving. Oxford has developed one. I don't want to go into the details because of the lack of time. Charaka Samhita, Janpata Dharma Sabha, worldwide epics are happening. We have also this. So what I have not studied Bible and all, but everything in our Hindu mythology is 220 was predicted. So spirituality should be encouraged. We had moral science because I was encouraged.
So taking the role of globalization, Ms. Monica, how important do you think is the balance between local and global context as recommended by NEP? The focus on languages, art, social culture versus building global competencies. So there's a role of spirituality, culturalism, appropriation. So how do you think the balance has to be maintained?
Sorry, can you please repeat the question once again?
Sure. So the bigger context for NEP is the balance between the local and the global context, and the focus on languages, arts, cultures versus building global competencies. So now a big part of the art and culture for India is spirituality, cultural appropriation. So how do you think the balance will be maintained?
I think the policy which is framed, as far as I understand, it keeps in mind all these factors. If we talk right from the school level education, the structure is obviously changed to 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, which enables a student to learn at a very early age and in a better manner. It also incorporates various multidisciplinary modes. It introduces vocational courses as well. It includes learning of various languages, as you mentioned. So I think the overall skills required for a student, they are met, because if we talk about the current situation, in our current system, basically a student is bombarded with so many subjects, with so much theoretical detailed content. And if we see on the practical grounds, if I talk about graduate level, a student has to learn all the technical skills, all the subject related areas, and in the final year he needs good soft skills too, to crack the job interviews or to go for any future prospect he wants to. And if we see at the time of interview, a student is unable to answer even the basics, which is most commonly asked in any job interview, and this is the case with the class topper. So our current system, it is basically equipping the student with only theoretical concept rather than practical learning, and with incorporating all these activities, all these multidisciplinary approach, I think a student will be able to groom himself better, because our current system, the new system suggests practical learning more than the theoretical learning. So yeah, student will also be globally competent with all these initiatives.
So Dr. Vikas,
Vinay, I would like to say something about this.
Sure, ma'am.
Can I say it?
Sure, ma'am. Please go ahead.
So Vinay, I think the question which you are asked is in lots of people's mind, they feel that is there any purpose of making the child learn their mother tongue, and is there any purpose of introducing spirituality or value system into the education? And I think that Vinay, this is very important. It is not going to take us back in globalization. It is going to give us a big impetus. For the first is that the student, if he's learning his mother tongue, he has access to all the scriptures and all the books and all the learnings in his own mother tongue, which a lot of people are not now there. And in nowhere in the world is it encouraged that you should not be in touch with your culture. So being in touch with your culture is not showing that you are going backwards. No, I mean, it is very important. And if you talk about spirituality, let me tell you that all this stress, this tension, these suicides, and the inability of students to cope, and all these things, even various diseases at a very young age that you are seeing among the youth, it is because, education has three pillars. One is it must teach you how to think. The second is it must provide you employability and some skill. And the third is it must provide you with a spiritual base, which will help you to become a stronger and better person. So we have totally lost out on spirituality. Why is it that it has not been an important part till now? Is because I think the first thing that the Britishers did was make sure that you were cut off from your roots by not allowing you to learn your local language or being taught in it. And the second is that the world over is going towards spirituality, which is coming from India, and in India we are not talking about it. It is so strange. I think that this is very important.
So, Dr. Vikas, do you think a new assessment, the new method to assess teachers also will help attract better talent pool of teachers and improve the education teaching methodology across the country?
Absolutely agree. The new assessment in terms of the norms or the things which have been laid down, that in terms of faculties will also be, I will not use that word assessed, but because I am a strong believer being a teacher, teaching comes by passion. It's not a job. I deny this thing, strongly deny it, that teaching is a job. Teaching is something which comes from a passion. I myself left a very lucrative job of Tata, and it was initially with MNC with Tata Chemicals, but it was my passion to teach. So, to be very honest, those who are faculties by heart, they always work themselves for their grooming. And as a faculty, probably everybody will agree with me that we as a faculty always get an inner voice whenever we are satisfied. If I am taking a lecture and if I have very well connected with my student, then my heart or soul will say, yes, Dr. Mishra, aaj you have done something good. So assessment is important, and yes, and to be very honest, in the current modern scenario also in which we are operating, obviously now teaching is also has become a type of professional and as well as job also. But still in terms of, because until unless we don't upgrade, because teaching is a two-way process, it's not a one-way communication. Every day as a faculty we learn something from our student. Whenever I teach to my student, at the end of the class, there are few new takeaways which I take from my student. So with the online continuous assessment, and obviously there has been incorporation, like in the new education policy, it is being mentioned now, a faculty need to go for a 50 hours of online and offline special teaching on the skill development. It's very important. And now again, a lot of focus has been given on the online education, on the open distance learning mode. So on all these things, obviously, as a faculty, we need to upgrade ourselves. And with the emerging technologies, like right now we are seeing not many things are happening on artificial intelligence, on big data, on machine learning, on 3D printing. So all those things we can't teach to our student until unless we as a faculty, we are not learning. So assessment is very important. And by and large, I would like to congratulate to my faculty fraternity also, that the faculty fraternity has very positively responded to these challenges, and they have withstood about, and they have taken this challenge with the current situation also. That's what I strongly believe, and I'm saying since last 3-4 months, that whatever digital evaluation, it would have taken at least minimum 1 5-year plan in a normal course to implement it in India. Online assessment is very important. Yes, there are now various online courses like MOOC, NPTEL, Swampara, because being a student of technology, I'm aware about the online opportunities or the assessment opportunities which are available with the technical era, with the technical field. They are helping a lot to the faculties to connect themselves, to upgrade themselves, to self-assess themselves. And it is very important. Teaching is not an easy job. It's not a 8-hour job. For a 1-hour lecture, one has to prepare a minimum 3 hours. So even if somebody is having 20-25 year experience, we spend at least 2 hours to prepare a lecture. So continuous learning, and that is what is being focused in this education policy, that there has to be a continuous learning. So as also the continuous assessment of student is also being proposed. That rather of going into a conventional assessment of those who are having that capability or capacity to mug up the things, they were getting good marks. Now, in this policy, the focus has been given on the knowledge.
So,
rather than the students. Yeah, please.
So we'll start. So I want to thank my audience for coming and participating in the polls. So we have the result to the second poll also out. Will the guidelines in NEP 2020 enable students to pick the right skills to be industry ready? And 93% of our audience thinks that yes, it will enable the students to pick up the skills. And following that, I would like Dr. Manish to give his closing remarks to the session and give his final opinions and words to enlighten us.
Thank you, Vinay. And I mean, I've been fortunate to work in the industry, and actually, my overall experience of 24 plus years is exactly divided 50-50 in academics and in the industry. So with God's grace, I'm able to see both sides of education, whether the industrial requirements or the educational inputs that we are going to give to the students. Yes, this poll is telling us the truth that one, we have been quite able to tell our students, rather before that, know ourselves that what does the industry need. We are able to see that, we are able to catch that requirement. But then unfortunately, we have been into a kind of orthodox mode of education. Same old subjects, same old syllabus, and there hasn't been any kind of liberty or flexibility either in designing of the syllabus or in the implementation of the syllabus in our classes. At the most, according to the guidelines of NBA, what we have been doing so far is, going beyond the curriculum that we have been proud of, that we often go beyond the curriculum. But then I think now with this new education policy or the flexibility that we have got in the new education policy, that flexibility or that going beyond the curriculum would be part of the curriculum. We shall be able to take this going beyond curriculum as part of our routine. Secondly, as Dr. Mishra has rightly pointed out, I would fully agree that the teacher has to be more responsible, because for the simple reason that now the student has become, or rather he is going to become more demanding. He will be choosing his own subjects, he will be asking you for the classes, he will be attending the classes, and he will be expecting some valuable inputs from you as a teacher. So it becomes it becomes more strong responsibility of the teacher to cater to the needs of the students. On the other hand, cater to the needs of the industry. So industry has been able to quite well define the requirements. I have been attending the job interviews, and they ask very simple question. They just look for the right candidate who can be groomed into their environment. But then with this introduction of the skill development right from the school, I think we shall be able to groom more better the student that we are going to produce from the higher education institute. One thing which I must point out here, Vinay, about the guidelines of UNESCO. I've got certain points from the guidelines of the UNESCO, which says that there has to be a balance between the fundamental subjects and the applied subjects. Yes, it's there. It's important. Secondly, it says that the industrial scenario should be well kept in mind while not only designing this curriculum, but also implementation of the curriculum. You must keep the industrial requirements in mind while implementing it. Thirdly, you have to take care of the challenged students. Those who can't move on their own or work on their own. You must take care of those students. Then there must be a blend of basic scientific knowledge and skills. Again, this point has been catered in our new education policy. I'm sure the thought leaders, the policy makers would have definitely considered these points or these guidelines by UNESCO, and that it is quite apparent, or that is quite visible in all the implementation, all the proposals of the new education policy. And finally, as Dr. Vikas also mentioned, the continuing education, the continuity in the learning. So even if you acquire one degree of graduation level or post-graduation level, even then you must continue your education, either being a student or being a teacher or being an educationist. You must continue with your education. So I think all these guidelines by UNESCO are well incorporated. The only final point which I would like to emphasize here is the responsibility of all educators, of course the ones who are on this panel and those who are listening and those on whom the responsibility is there. And that responsibility is to have a continuous feedback. There are documents. I'm sure this document is more than 300 pages, the new education policy. So documents are there in place, but then it's we who have to implement it. And more importantly, it's the responsibility lies on us to take a continuous feedback. क्या हम सही कर रहे हैं? क्या हमने जो पढ़ के जो implement किया है, whether we are going into a right direction? And if yes, continue with more conviction, with more confidence. And if there is a slightest of no, a feedback or a review on what we have been doing or what needs to be corrected. So I think with all these guidelines and all these points, as I mentioned in the beginning itself, der aaye par durust aaye. So after a wait of long 34 years, ultimately we have something in our hands which we can implement. So I think we should confidently implement this as part of our routine, as part of our lifestyle, and of course part of our curriculum, and see the results. Take continuous feedback whether we are going in the right direction. Not only this, whenever we find some lacuna or some point which is missing, which of course can be a natural phenomena, immediately give feedback to the responsible people, to the policy makers. And that's how we shall be able to, as Deepika ma'am also mentioned in the beginning, that it's a process of evolution. So it's things will get evolved by themselves as we shall be able to move it in a sincere mode, in a serious direction. That's all from my side.
So, Dr. Yogeshwari, please, I would request you to enlighten us with your closing remarks for the session.
I think that overall the response which you have been receiving through the polls which you have taken, this is just showing us that the NEP seems to have done all the right things. As far as even the students are concerned, they also feel that there is a hope and something good will come out of this new education policy. I think it has something for everybody. Faculty also, they are very happy with it. I think the new teacher training system which will be there, then the research incentives that will be there for the faculty, that is going to be very good. I think the emphasis which is going to be there on the incubation centers, that is really going to transform the need for placing students. If we have more students who will be going in for entrepreneurship, they will be job givers rather than job seekers. I think that is very important in this policy. And I would also like to say that in this entire policy, 2-3 more things we have not touched on, but which are very important, is the social leaning of the policy. We are talking here about giving a lot of more scholarships. We are talking about adult learning. We are also talking over here about community service. And I think all this is creating a very holistic sort of a national education policy, which is talking about research, it is talking about good teaching, it's talking about choices which are given to the students, increase in the skill set of students. Vocational courses have been given a lot of importance. So I think overall this discussion has been very fruitful, and a lot of speakers who have come today, they have thrown light on different aspects of this policy and their take on it. And I think that everybody is in consensus that this is the right thing, it has come at the right time, and if it is implemented in the right, it will be very good. Thank you.
Ms. Monica, I would request you to please enlighten us with your closing remarks on the new education policy.
I totally agree with Dr. Yogeshwari. This policy seems to be a win-win for the entire community, whether be the students, whether be the schools, the colleges, universities, or the teachers. Yes, few aspects can be rephrased or can be think upon more. Like if we talk about research facilities, though the government is introducing various education and research centers, multidisciplinary research centers across the country, which will definitely promote the research culture across, among the students, among the faculties. However, I think that since today all the big corporate houses, they too have their own R&D divisions. So a mechanism can also be framed that those R&D divisions can be established in the education institutes also. This will complement both the industry as well as education, and the students will be able to think beyond their books more, and they will be able to face the real life challenges. This will not only promote the research culture and but will open the doors for entrepreneurship as well. And talking about the faculty training, yes, definitely trained faculty is the prerequisite for any education system. However, certain aspects can be covered more. If we talk about our current system, it sets certain eligibility criteria to become a faculty, which includes some minimum academic qualification. And if we compare a good faculty with just a BTech degree, but from a good institute, and if we compare a faculty having an MTech degree, but from an average institute, our system will obviously prefer the MTech faculty. And I'm not saying that qualification doesn't matter. Obviously, it matters. But besides the qualification, I think the required skills to become a good teacher and the validation of the degree, that also matters. So I think these factors should also be looked upon. Otherwise, overall, the policy covers almost every aspect and would be beneficial for the entire ecosystem.
Dr. Deepika, can we please have your closing remarks on the new education policy?
Yes, very briefly, the whole education system has evolved, but because there are a lot of changes and there should be more policy changing every 3 years, modifications. Monica has very well revealed that MA degree, even my driver has a MA degree, and so degree is not the correspondence courses which just award. Degrees are given, there is a lot of corruption even amongst the pious educationalist, which is a humble. Dr. Vikas had said so much of bias, so much of genuinity in the faculty members, and it has to be done with passion. Lot of corruption even in this profession has been taking place, and people have just been throwing just because the PM said that 8th standard pass you have to be to drive a car. So lot of degrees are just given, forged degrees are being given. So the education policy is good. Only leadership has to be instilled. Like there was a crash in Kozhikode, the pilot gave up his life. So these kind of news items in group discussions, training, this should be emphasized. Maybe it's not directly connected. And think of comradeship. Like in the beginning, we had pen friend as a school child. Now there is Facebook. To use Facebook and LinkedIn in a very positive way and not in a very storytelling should be instilled. These kind of little culture should be emphasized, yet not ignoring your English because it is now a necessity. Okay, now I think I should close. It was a great discussion. Thank you, Dr. Yogeshwari had highlighted us on the spiritual aspect, which I agree with each and everyone, the industrial aspect with Dr. Manish Vellore. Thank you very much. I have also gained knowledge. Thank you, Vinay, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming and enlightening us with your very wonderful words. Dr. Vikas Misra, I would request you to also present your closing remarks and then we'll end the session for tonight on the new education policy.
Thank you, Vinay, for giving the opportunity. I'm very optimistic about this new education policy, and this I agree that there is always a room for correction. There is always a room for bringing new thoughts and ideas. So, but let's begin it. सबसे पहले शुरू तो करें. Let's do it. Then we will together find out the ways we will do that SWOT analysis, where what need to be changed, what need to be added upon, that the education fraternity will do. The education fraternity is capable enough. One very unique thing which I see in this entire education policy is to bring that moral value, to bring that empathy factor, which is probably, I strongly believe, is drastically missing in today's youth. When we were a child, when we were a student, probably we used to study moral science. Moral science पढ़ाया जाता था. But nowadays kids are, they don't know anything about morality, about empathy, about sensibility. So if we are able to make our youth, our student, our child a good human being, एक हमने अगर उसको अच्छा इंसान बना दिया, तो बाकी चीजें उसके अंदर अपने आप आ जाएगी. तो probably in the soul of this new education policy, this is probably what I see as a soul or the main core to the thought of this education policy, is to make youth more sensible, develop that empathy. Obviously, technology, skill developmentation, entrepreneurship, global connect, all those things are there. But ultimately, a person or child or a youth should be sensible. That sensitivity, that purity of thought. And again, it is linked. I'm not going to touch upon Dr. Yogeshwari ma'am, and Dr. Deepika ma'am has talked in length about the spirituality. And spirituality, I will only sum up that it is in our blood. You cannot take spirituality is in our soul, in the divine. So that basically guides us. वो कहते हैं गीता कर्म लॉर्ड कृष्णा है सेट कर्म करें फल की इच्छा मत करें. So that karma we have to do. That karma comes from the divine side. This education policy is going to certainly bring that multifaceted, multi-talented youth, and that is what today is the world of multitasking. I am a very strong believer that this policy is going to bring a major change, because it is aimed towards the holistic development of a student, which is covering the entire 360 degree of development. So that's what is my final take on this. Thank you, Vinay, for giving this opportunity, and I thanks all my panel members. It's my honor to join the dais with you all. I have been personally enlightened listening to you all. Thank you very much. Dr. Manish is willing to say something. Please.
Vinay, just to put up one point, there have been big industrial leaders appearing on television or giving their statements in newspapers that somebody would say that 80% of the engineering graduates or normal graduates are unemployable. I think all teachers, all academicians, they have a lot of pain listening to all this. We have put up hard work. We have, we have groomed our students, and we have left no stone unturned. But still, these industry people say that your students are unemployable, 80%, 90%, or 70%, whatever. But I think the biggest litmus test or the biggest test for this education policy lies in these statements. Some days, some industrialist would appear on the television, and he would say that after implementation of this new education policy, now that percentage of unemployable graduates has come down to 50% or 40%. That would be the biggest success of this national education policy, and will be a great pleasure and a sigh of relief to all of us academicians and teachers.
Okay, with that, I think it was a very wonderful session for our audience, and for me as well. It was very enlightening and very knowledgeable, and I want to thank all my panelists for giving us their very valuable time and teaching us a lot of tidbits from their life and from the institute and their experience. And I think it has been a very wonderful session, and we'll close it with that. So thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all panelists. It was very nice being with all of you.
Thanks, sir. Pleasure is same here. Good to connect to you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.